Hello everyone, my name is Gilbert and this is Taking It Mobile i9 for Windows Phone 7. Welcome. With this presentation, we're finishing a series of 4 webcasts where we've been talking about Internet Explorer 9 and all of the new features that Microsoft have put together in this new browser for Windows. In this last presentation, we're going to be talking about i9 but on a different factor. We're going to be seeing i9 on the Windows Phone 7 Mango version that is coming out later this fall. So let's start. We've come a long way since this. You remember when the mobile web was as simple as entering some text on a small screen. But things have changed along the way, and things have evolved all the way to mobile versions of the standards that we're more accustomed to use doing web. And now it is even moving a lot more further. And as we see on this graphic, browser now tops apps in data traffic, and the browser has become the #1 application in terms of total user face time and uses half of the mobile data traffic for typical phone users. And when we see this, when it relates to other applications and to other services, we see that browser is becoming more and more a pervasive application and a pervasive place in the use of everyday users. And at the same time, when we start seeing how applications make use of the internet, of access to the data, we see that the browser will top most of them in terms of total face time, in total data traffic as well. So let's see how today's phones have evolved, and today's phones are full of sensors which make it rich for applications that we can write on top of it. It knows what time it is because it has access to the clock. It knows where it is, and this has become pervasive in a lot of applications these days. It knows the ambient light because there is light sensor, so you can improve the way the applications will look in order to make it easier for the user to use, especially when they're outside. It also knows if it is moving, and this is quite important for gaming in terms of accelerometer and gyroscope. And it knows the directions. I was saying compass nowadays is built in most of the modern phones that we own. And important things are that now it can hear and also see things because of access to the microphone and access to the camera. So now not only we can use it for a camera as a photo device, but we can also use it for things like augmented reality and more interesting and creative ways. But with all of these things, it comes out to a question whether we go to a native app or whether we go to a web app. And despite conventional belief, by 2013, most native devices attributes will reach HTML5 web applications, and this is by enabling user experience that rival native apps. But before we get there, we need to know the mission of our applications, and then we will be able to see where is the web standing now and whether that works for the mission that we have for our applications. Web applications are ideally for rapid iterative design and subscription-based content. At the same time, we can take architectural advantage of cross-platform coding. That means that we can write it once and we can have it run across devices. And it has substantial savings in QA and code reuse because this is just standard web. There is nothing more in between, or there is not that much difference. And with technologies like HTML5, CSS3, and ECMAScript 5, the capabilities of the mobile web has become a game changer, and now you are able to create stunning experiences just like the ones that you're delivering on the desktop browser on mobile, and this at a lightning fast iterations. So, but we need first of all to understand also the mobile context. But also we need to understand the mobile context and how different experiences are in between. So for that, we have this little grid over here. We're going to be comparing the physical and the experience itself between these two scenarios. At one side, and this goes to both desktop and laptops, we have a full keyboard, accurate pointed device. We have the mouse, we have a large screen and multiple monitors, and especially important, is a powerful CPU and GPU with a big disk. So here we pretty much can do whatever we want because we know it's going to be supported. On the other side, on the phone, we have a limited or virtual keyboard. We don't know which one are we getting based on the experience. And nowadays, most of the phones are coming keyboardless with on-screen keyboard instead. We also have a finger pointing device, which means that accuracy nowadays is not that much as we have come to learn with the mouse, and now it has become more chunky in a way that we're doing it with our own fingers, and we have all types of side fingers, so we have to keep that in mind as well. Also, on the mobile phone, we have a small screen which can rotate, so we have to accommodate for both landscape and portrait modes, and less capable CPUs as of now and GPUs with the small storage. So on the desktop we have all these Core i7 and i5. On the mobile phones we're not quite there yet, so we have to compare to those things. And on the experience, on the desktop, it's used at a fixed and predictable location. So it's not like you're gonna be using under the sunlight, by the beach, or high at the mountain, or on the subway. Things are pretty much fixed on what the locations that we might be seeing, and also is good for opening and browsing, meaning you open a tab, you do some of your tasks there, then you open a new one, then you leave the other one there, and then you're coming back and forth, when on the mobile phone you can only do one task at a time. It is also easy to switch among many tasks. Again, it's just a click away. Whether on the phone, it takes a little bit more effort, and the user is focused and comfortable. Most of the time he's going to be seated at a comfortable place, and he's going to be focusing on the content. Whether on the mobile, you're going to be on the run. Now, if we put this in contrast with the mobiles are typically used on the go in unpredictable environments. We don't know if it is going to be crowded, if it is going to be noisy, we don't know if it is going to be under the sun or late at night. And it's also good for quick and glanceable information, meaning that most of the time when you open up your phone is because you're going to get some quick information. You want to get that out of it as quickly as possible. And it's also good to know that it's focused on discrete individual tasks. On the phones, you don't have applications full of features, full of things, and flashy things going on all at once. On the phones, you're mostly focused on one task at a time, and user is often distracted or busy. When you compare this to the desktop, you're in front of it, you're focused on that, and that's important for us to understand when we're building and designing the experiences. Part of this is to understand that mobile users have different expectations than desktop users. Mobile users expect immediate access to important information and applications. Mobile users expect information to be augmented by the real world. That's why you have time and place, and you have your accelerometers and all of these kind of sensors. Now the user have come to expect those things to just work as part of the experience and have become purposive in that end. And also environmental conditions can vary widely. Lighting, you can be at a party and there is so much light, and then you go to the restroom and there is full of light. Background noise, network speed. You have to build also thinking that the network connection can drop at any time, and that should not degrade the experience in its own, but has to be gratefully degraded. A user's surroundings influence how they use web applications relative to privacy. For example, maybe they don't want other people to be seeing what they're typing if they're on the subway, or things of the like. Here we have a little graph that shows the mobile browser diversity that exists today. Here we have on the top Opera, who's the most used one, especially because of their ability to be on most of the dumb phones, as we call it. Then from there on we have a lot of other ones, and what this means is that the kind of experiences that we design, especially in the mobile browser, have to play nice with most of these phones. And the good thing is that HTML5 is becoming more and more purposive in terms of their availability in mobile phones, especially in smartphones. So now we can rest assured that we're going to be able to write it once, our experiences, focus on the features, focus on the value, and less focusing on compatibility issues that so far has grounded the experience. So with Windows Phone 7, in the Mango version that is being released later this year, Microsoft brings all of the features that we've been talking through all this webcast from Internet Explorer 9, the desktop version, into the phone. And there are many changes in terms of like hardware accelerated graphics to an improved JavaScript engine. So all of this is bringing and is made available to us as developers, as designers, to take advantage in our applications, in our experiences, to improve the user's productivity. So with engineering i9 in a mobile form, the team had a few objectives that they wanted to do. The first one is enabling HTML5 through same markup. That means that those scripts and those markup that you have written for other phones or other modern phones should just work under the Windows Phone 7. Also, it's being engineered for performance. The Chakra engine, the JavaScript Chakra engine that we talked in the previous sessions, it's also being available in this new form factor, and that's in itself very impressive. Also, a clean and site-centric experience. This means that the i9 team has gone all the way to providing things like less Chrome. It's pretty much just your web app. That means that you can write your app in a way that it just feels and behaves like a native app without having to go all the full 9 yards with native development. Also, it means that most of the controls now are masked to look and feel and behave like Metro controls. It also means that you can just pretty much provide your user with the greatest experience that they can expect without the browser sitting in between, and that's very important. And also, this is probably one of the most important ones, is a safe and trusted browsing. You want to provide those things to your users and make sure that they feel reliable with the experience that they're in. So going back to the drawing board, when the IE9 team was putting all of this together, they went back to developers and designers and they say, what do you want? And the number one thing is interoperability in the same markup. That means having access to HTML5 canvas, audio, video, XHTML, SVG, that nowadays has become more important, especially for games, the DOM cores and events and CSS tree selectors, and we have some DOM traversal, especially improvement in those things. We have some DOM range in terms of selecting. We have HTML5 parsing. All of these things is what the people wanted. Why? Because HTML5 is becoming more and more as a pervasive technology for the future experiences and for cross-platform availability, and that's important to point out. The number two is performance. Having a holistic focus on performance, faster JavaScript. A lot of the code that is being written nowadays is on JavaScript. Have a GPU powered graphics. That means that you can run away from plugins and now making all this available as a native web experience. And the number three was website to feel and look and behave more like native applications. And this is reducing the user interface space area. It means removing the Chrome, unlocking the hardware. That way we as developers can have access to sensors and all of these rich and great things that sit beneath in the hardware. And the number four is a safe and trusted browsing. No ActiveX controls, no browser helper objects, no plugins, no binary behaviors, just a native web and cross-platform compatible experience. And that's what the team wanted to deliver with this new version. So let's understand how today's sites behave and what kind of APIs they use. The team made a big investment in analyzing the way the APIs are being used by users. So in that way they will be able to prioritize work in terms of APIs that were not being supported yet and how they would do it. And what they found was that things that you might expect to be fairly used were not, and things that you might not expect to be fairly used was very important. So they draw a line on the curve and they say, okay, from this point on, this is going to be our priority for i9, and then later on they're going to be start improving in terms of what's coming next with i10. So what they found is that index of was the number one feature of the API that was used, and this is used 94% of the websites made use of this. And then there were other ones like get element by ID and add event listener was used 65% of the time and was not supported at a time, and at the same time with Get Computer Style. The most important thing about this is that they not only implemented the ones that were more used, but they took that as a driven point for scenarios to support. And scenarios to support means that they will go and see how an event listener will be used and implement all of the things that surround that context, so that in the time that you as a developer are going to make use of an API, you will know that things that surround that API element will also be available for you to use under specific scenarios. Now, approaching HTML5 is tricky, and here you have a presentation that sees what are the state of different things or features and capabilities within the whole HTML5 standards. And as you see, there are certain things towards the right and the end that are already candidate for recommendation or even at a recommendation level, but there are many other things on the left side of the picture that they are either a working draft or they're even at a level of a first public working draft. And that means that the team at the W3C are very hard at work making things change, and they are very hard at work at coming out with the last version of, or with the improved version of what the spec should be. So implementing all of this at once is a tricky thing, because if not, we as developers might devote ourselves to a specific implementation of a standard, but that can change tomorrow or the day after. And the browser people will have to come and keep on dating those things. So what the IE8 team, the IE9 team did was to focus on those things that are already well documented, that are already at a point where the implementation is stable enough in the community so that they will be able to support it, knowing that changes might be very minimum in the future, and then waiting on implementation to certain things that might be important for us as developers, but the chances for this to change eventually or rapidly across the time will be very high, so that in those terms we as developers can rest assured that whatever we are investing money on developing and wherever we're investing time in learning is gonna live across the time, and that's quite important. So HTML5 is a massive undertaking. There are over 50 specs, and from what we have seen is the first HTML spec that is being well written. There are more specs will be added in the coming years, as we saw. They're already on the work, but we have to be knowingful that what we're doing will remain along the time. Now, not all specifications are site ready, as we said. They're locked into premature specification implementation. There are start breaking changes from one release to the next. There were some videos that were going behind about things that are implemented and then the next day they're broken and the next day they're implemented differently. So better hold the horses on those things. Try to understand, play along with those things, but we're not making it widely available just yet. And there are incompatible implementations across browsers, so we have to make sure that we come to a consensus before we even go into that road. And Microsoft's approach to this has been in two main components: provide implementations for site-ready specs, meaning those things that are not going to change over time, and then provide platform previews for in-development specs. And you can play with, like in this case, IE10 platform previews that have some certain implementations there of things that are coming in the pipeline, but they're not quite ready at the moment, so that you can play and that you can be ready by the time that those things are. And you can check out the HTML5 lab sites, and here there are a lot of implementations the IE team are putting along there, putting it there for you to see, that where you can approach the team and then you can give your comments or you can give suggestions or your points of view in the way the team are doing all of these implementations. And from what you can see, the IE team is becoming open and very live and evolving team, and this is something that has changed from previous years, and we as developers and designers should take advantage of that in terms of helping them shape the future of the technology. So here's a partial list or a partial summary of IE9 mobile capabilities, and this is what is going to be available by the time it ships. So at the media and graphics capability, we have HTML5 canvas and HTML5 video, SVG and HTML5 audio. All of this is hardware accelerated and supported. We have at the level of CSS3, we have 2D transformations, especially good for games, background and borders, fonts module. We have media queries, which is very important to bring experiences from the desktop to mobile friendly ways in a very dynamic way. We have colors module, we have namespaces support, values and units and selectors, and then we have other things that are being improved, like the DOM APIs and the traversal and range improvements in terms of performance. We have geolocation, access to sensors. We have ECMAScript 5. We have selectors, color profiles in images, semantic elements in order to support HTML5, and new ways to improve the markup. XML parse and data URI so that we can embed some images there, and we have so many more that are being available. So as you see, this is a huge step forward that the IE team is doing in a mobile factory. It's bringing all of the new features and all of this investment that I did on IE9 and bringing it to the table on the phone. So what's under the covers? Let's see what's in the box. Let's see how things happen. Something is key in IE9 is that there is a minimal browser cron, and that this places focus on the site and not on the browser, and this is very important to making your applications more and more native feeling. It's also hardware accelerated HTML5. That means that video and text renderings and canvas drawing, all of this is happening at a hardware level. We're making it sure that we put all of these nifty hardware things that we have in our phones to work, and in that way we can bring power and we can bring all the processing to where it should be. And GPUs are becoming more and more powerful today, so that means that we can be a better citizen on the phone, and especially a better citizen with the battery consumption, which is very important in our mobile lives. Also, it brings orders of magnitude of better performance. As we were talking, the new Chakra engine is now embedded in the browser, and that's, as you saw in the previous presentations, a very high increase in terms of performance in the JavaScript execution. We also have interoperability through the same markup. That means supporting for established site-ready standards. All of the HTML5 and all the things that we talked in the previous slide is being supported. And key for this is also support for things like viewport, the meta tag, and these are very specific for mobile web technologies. Support for W3C geolocation, including GPS. So now you will be able to have a GPS level of certainty in terms of the information that you're getting. Also full support for CSS media queries, and we're talking the full spec is being supported with IE9 on the mobile phone. And we have some HTML5 and audio and video at a full screen playback, and this is very important. It's hardware accelerated, as we said, and you're taking available all of the screen of the phone. So you also have support for data URIs, so that you can reduce the HTTP requests and improve performance in your web applications. And the good thing is that now data URIs have a maximum size increased to 4 gigabytes. Now, who knows who wants to use this for that big of a file, but you know that those things are available. And you have the DOM local storage and session storage, which is better than caching data locally without using cookies. So all of this is available, so you can create long-lasting experiences, and especially resistance or reliance to changes in the networking. So let's see a demo of this goodness that the Windows Phone 7 Mango has available in IE9, and let's take a look at how the IE team have pushed the boundaries of the mobile browser with this new version. So let's take a look. So here we are in the mobile emulator, and what we're going to do is that we're going to give you some demos of the new capabilities. So you can start the browser right from the home screen. This is the Bing page, just style a little bit for mobile, and what we're going to do is that out of the bookmarks we're going to start with the test drive. So just as we had the Internet Explorer 9 test drive for desktop, we have one for mobile, and what it does is that it shows different demos of the new capabilities that are enabled in this new mobile browser. So a lot of things like the same code, HTML5 controls, hardware graphic accelerations, all of that is here for you to test. And let's start with the audio player. So the audio player, what it does is that it showcases some of the new capabilities that are enabled or that can be possible with the new audio controls for HTML5. And here we have an example. This is all HTML. There is none of a plugin, nothing of proprietary code. It's just plain simple HTML standard. And here you can play along with the music. And the good things is that with Internet Explorer 9 in the mobile, you can play music on the background and make use of all of the controls that are available from the phone. We can also give it a try to the new border radios in CSS controls. So here, just like in the desktop, you can give it a try. You can cycle the border, you can animate the width and animate the radius. So as you can see, this is just plain HTML code. Here we have some of the new capabilities like copy and paste. So here we can animate the radius. You can see how smooth it behaves. You can animate the width. It is very smooth, the flow, and as you can see, there is nothing more to it than just plain standard HTML. Now there are, as I said, many demos, so we're just going to give you a glance over here. We have the SVGs. So here we have the SVG version of the i9 logo being rendered on the phone. As you see, is plain smooth, and is the graphic capability is very high. We can also give you a test of the new CSS3 media queries, and as we saw in previous presentation, this can be, and on this presentation as well, and we'll see this a little bit more in detail in a little while. You can take advantage of this as a way to accommodate your content to the mobile. So here, let's give it a try. Let's look for the test drive here in Bing. And what we're gonna do is that we're gonna bring the test drive and we're gonna show you how that CSS3 media queries looks like. So this is the page. So as you can see, it's just a plain simple HTML page, but it's styled different, but it's the same page. So here you can see the way it's being rendered in the mobile. This is because they're making use of the CSS3 media queries to accommodate the content for smaller screens, and you can give it a try this right from your browser in the desktop just by making the window in a smaller size. So you can see that at a certain point the page just takes the metro styling out of the regular styling and then shows to you. So you can take advantage of this to style your website in a way that is ready for mobile without having making too many changes. Again, here is another one that shows you the power of graphics accelerated or hardware accelerated graphics. So here, if you went to the or watch the keynote early this year when they unveiled this, you can see how fast and smooth this runs on the phone. And this is, as you can see, is keeping it at 60 frames per second, which for a mobile device is very high. You want to try to push for 30 for hardware capability, but these are taking 60 frames per second, which is pretty remarkable for a mobile browser and for a mobile solution. Here we have another one which is animating the IE logo out of regular elements. So here we have how it animates, plain smooth, and this is just to show you how Internet Explorer 9 in mobile now takes advantage of all the standard CSS3 and HTML5 capabilities. And the fish, we have the fish that cannot be missed. Here it takes a little bit while to load because it's bringing all of the assets from the internet. I didn't load this before to have it in cache, but you will see how really smooth, just like in the desktop it runs, and here you have it. So just imagine how powerful your games will behave in the phone right from the browser. And here we're not talking, this is not native code, this is just plain simple HTML5 and JavaScript code running there, and you can see how rich the execution is. So as you were able to see, there are many things there, and the good thing is that now you're gonna be able to take advantage of all these new things as an embedded browser control within your native app. So if you're doing native apps and you want to take advantage of some of these features in your applications, now you can. So the Windows Phone provides an embeddable browser control. It uses the same i9 rendering engine. It means that all of the goodness that you just saw are going to be available for you in your applications, and it doesn't include the user interface Chrome. It's just a drawing interface. That means that you can put it whatever you want, and you can do whatever you want with it and improve the experience. Also, you can have access to interact with it through managed code. That means that your managed code can communicate with the page through using some invoke scripts, so you can communicate with JavaScript that is embedded on that page, and at the same time you can also call back to managed code using some external APIs so that you can notify the application about certain things that has happened or not in the browser control. So after you saw this, so how do you go mobile? How do you go about this mobile thing, and how do you put your mind in the right state? So let's state by making the right decisions up front. You have to use well-defined web standards. That's key. That's important. You also have to decide on a content adaptation approach. We're going to see next how you go about that. You also have to create a mobile tailored forms and pages. That means that your forms and your pages present in the best way to the user and make sure that the user can take advantage of the capabilities on the phone to make it a better experience. And also you have to add HTML5 features that increase usability. And we're going to see how minimal of those things are going to be interacting with the keyboard and interacting with other things that improve the usability of the applications and reduce certain seconds of experience and make it feel smarter. Also, you want to consider using a mobile framework. There is jQuery Mobile. There are many of those things that make life easier for you to come out with applications. And most important one, test and test and test. There is nothing that is going to replace by testing. You have to test your experiences. You have to make sure that they look and behave in the way that you expect. So designing for one web, that's important. Try to provide the same information to all users of your site regardless of the device. Now, make sure that this doesn't mean that you have to provide the same presentation for all the information to all of the users, but you have to make sure that you're not removing key things from the user. You want to make sure that you're doing it in the best way and that you're improving on that experience. Don't necessarily exclude user based solely on the class of device, but rather try to use separate presentations and behaviors in terms of what the capabilities are. Build your site using progressive enhancement. That means that you can pick a baseline and then from there move on. And also use separate CSS and JavaScript files. That means that by separating content and by separating style, you will be able to provide a better experience, and it will improve your manageability of the files and of the content. And please don't embed styles or scripts in the page, because this is going to make it harder for you to maintain different versions in the page contents. So rather keep it separately, so that way you will be able to tune up depending on the phones or on the baseline that you want to take from there. Also, design for the finger and not the stylus. Things are changing, and now the finger has become the most popular and pervasive stylus that there is in the world. So make sure that you do that. And good finger-friendly design is also stylus-friendly. So with that, targeting the finger, you're targeting everything that is in between. So don't make the stylus the only way to access features in your web or your applications. Also, fingers are naturally more dexterous than a device like a stylus. It is relatively easy to perform multiple actions with a finger, like flicking or panning or scrolling. So all of these different gestures are easier with the fingers than there is with the stylus. Now picture you using a stylus to pinch, right? And also, the typical size of a fingertip, so you can keep that in mind, is 40 to 80 pixels. So build navigation elements, size appropriately, so that you can ensure that they respond well to the user and they're not gonna be maximizing or trying to pick the elements and they end up picking something different. Also important, be crisp clean and succinct. That means design pages that use fewer fonts and colors. With that, you can dramatically increase readability. Don't use background images and those things because they tend to divert, right? So avoid gratuitous graphics and unnecessary interactivity that doesn't add any value to the user. And I say background images can make the page harder to read and also make it heavy to load. Optimize content for the small screen space, so scale down images, use short titles, and that's very important to keep, and use white spaces to separate elements, but be sparing and judicious, and that's very important. Here we have an example with the Twitter app in mobile, and you can see how you can very greatly, thanks to the white space, you can separate elements on the screen, but you're not using grand graphics or grand interaction there just for the sake of being. Also, try to minimize required input. Entering data on the phone can be tiresome and error prone, so you want to minimize that as much as you can. Require the user to focus on the task. So entering a lot of text increases the likelihood of errors and frustration, and you're gonna have your user end up just moving away to somewhere else. So try to make it lightning fast to get to the information that they need, and only require the minimum amount of information to get the job done. All the rest you can do it on the desktop browser and have the user come back there if they want, but try to make it, as simple as possible. Try to use the KISS rule here, and you have to, you want to provide the user with the best and quick experience as you can, and provide sensible default values. That means that the user can just leave it there and then just move along very quickly around the forms if that need to, and try to use cookies or storage to remember previous users input. That means make your applications a little bit smarter, and that's not adding too much complexity to it. Now moving along as well, we have a key thing for our masters, the Grasshopper and the master. Focus, Grasshopper, focus, Good mobile web apps focus on a few important tasks. You don't want to implement all of the features in your desktop app or in your browser desktop app in the phone. You want to focus on a few important tasks, the way the user can get things done, and then just move along. So resist the temptation to make all of the features of your desktop site available on the phone. Try to distill the features of your main site into ones that are most critical for the user on the go, and try to display the most common features prominently without having to scroll. That means that most of the information are going to be right in their faces when the application loads, and what to do should be obvious. A blink decision by the user. It should not have to get the user to think a lot or any of these things. It should go straight to what they need. Also, as we were saying, try to use well-defined standards. Use standards and try to pick a minimum baseline. So try to use XHTML 1.0 or HTML 4.0 or XHTML. Try to use CSS 2.1 as the baseline and XML 3. Don't try to go even further. You have to pick a line and then move on top of that. And then use HTML5 and CSS 3 for features in device that they can support it, so to improve the experience. And then you can build on top of that. Important, always specify the doc type for your pages. Why? Because it is gonna be lightning fast and easier for the mobile browser to understand how to go with the content and how to make up for the way that it lays out the page. And also try to use standard media types, JPEG or GIFs, or try to use WMB or MP4 to provide some dynamic media, but don't go with things that are of the past. This kind of standards are already either hardware encoded or they're very fine-tuned for you, so you want to stick with those things and try to avoid things that cause non-issues, right? Like frame sets and tables used for layouts, or nested tables, or image maps. These things are things from the past that you should already move on from your desktop, but and specifically for the phone, because their screen real estate is very less, and then you are gonna end up having applications that pan out and then have to get clipped. So you want to move along and keep reliance on away from reliance on plugins or the HTML behaviors, because those things are not supported on the phones or most of the phones. And also try try adapting content to mobile. So here we have 4 different approaches that you can do to adapt your content. The first one, just do nothing. No special content adaptation. Results are the same as in the desktop side, and they are just like that being delivered to the device. So might as well you can leave it like that, or provide some basic mobile adaptation. Content may laid out so it will at least be consumable on a device. Special meta tags indicate that page is readable for mobile. You can use things like viewport and media queries to improve some of that experience. You can also multi-serve content. That means the same page is sent to the mobile and desktop, but it's styled different to each. And last but not least is have mobile specific designs. Part of your site are going to be designated for mobile specifically, and they're sometimes kept, or most of the times kept, in a separate domain or subfolder. You may say like m.hotmail.com or m.bing.com. So those things you want to keep aware of, and you will be redirected there when necessary. With the multi-serving content, you want to pretty much same page, different devices, style right. Usually involves some kind of detection, so you want to do it on the server, but you can also do it on the client. Use a script to detect the browser capabilities, or on the server use the code to detect the user agent, so that you can more preemptively and proactive send the user or the client the assets and the elements that are needed for the best experience. There are some caveats. Try to avoid using JavaScript on the client to check for the user agent. Try to do it on the server, because that is going to take more time, and it takes the browser to render all of that and to download. So you want to make it as quick as possible, and some of those times is better on the server. And try not to use user agent detection to do things like workarounds or shortcomings in specific browser. Try to use capability detections, meaning that you can detect if certain feature is available or not, and then you can degrade gracefully to a workaround. And also, or to an alternative, mobile specific design. For those, try to use web pages design and code specifically for mobile devices, and there are 2 not for those things. Pages are usually kept on a separate or in their own domain, like I would said, m.site or site.com/m. So you want to the user is going to be easier to remember and to bookmark those things. Usually involve some kind of user agent detection. So try to do it on the server for this, and try to redirect the user right away. Suggestion, don't roll your own. Try to use standard ways to do this. So use Google a little bit or Bing a little bit, and then you're going to get access to those things. So for basic rich versus non-rich, use something simple. And for things that are more complex, so you can use the WRFL in ASP.NET, Java, or PHP, which are standard ways to do this. An example in terms of making things constrained to the size of the device. An example is the web forms, right? So basic forms usability checklist. Use top-align form labels. We're going to see example right away. Give the user the option to display password characters. That means that if they want, they can show what they're writing. Prefer built-in web form controls when they make sense, because they keep the look and feel of the platform. And then with the IE9, the team has made available all of the Metro controls to you. Try to minimize the number of screens the user has to pass through. You don't want to create fatigue from the user and then having them to leave the experience halfway through. And also try to minimize typing and use the new HTML form input types, so that you can allow the phone to be a little bit smarter of what it's expecting. So you can say, this is a number or this is an email, so that when the keyword shows up, the keyword shows up in the best way possible to facilitate the input of information. So as an example, for the top-align form fields, if you have it this way, when you zoom in on the device, it's going to end up like this. You want it to happen to like this. So we're going to be seeing a little bit in the slides how you can handle this in a dynamic way for your web pages. So as I said, all of this is very important, but it all depends on the glasses that you use to see the world. So you have to make it appropriate and try to use the best glasses at the best time. So how do we go and view in the web today? we have different ways, right? We have the desktop browsers, we have the mobile browser, we have some tablet form factors nowadays, we have televisions and game consoles. You want to make sure that you provide the best experience to target the ones on the users. So for those things, we have the viewport, and that's a meta tag that you can use on your pages and then define where the content should go or where the focus should go. So the viewport controls how content is laid out. So you have the screen device, and then you have the document viewport, and you can say, pan out to get the best experience of the user's client device. There are some options. The viewport provides several options that control how the web page is displayed and what the users can do with it, and that's very important. So you have some width and height specifically to improve where the content is going to be shrink or put to. There is some initial scale that you can set, defaults to 1, which is the normal scale. You have a maximum scale and minimum scale, so you can manipulate those things, and you can whether let the browser know if the content is user scalable or not. So that means that the user will not be able to zoom in if they want it. This mobile tags prevents the browser from optimizing the layout, so that you can do it on your own and you can optimize it yourself, or at least provide some help to the browser in terms of how it goes with your content. So there are 3 meta tags that do this. There is the handheld friendly content, the mobile optimized, and then you can give the viewport of it, and then you have the viewport itself that you can make sure that the experience works. So with the content, you can use variables like device width, so that it will take the device and then use that as the viewport. You also have CSS stream media queries, which is our smart switch. So with CSS media queries, you can specify methods to enable the way the style sheet will behave for certain specific things of how the browser should choose what style sheet to use for the specific elements or specific types. So here we have an example, right? So we were talking about the top align form. So here we have the way it looks at the desktop browser. Here, if you zoom in, but if you want it the way this way, it's very simple. So you just put a media only screen and you say with a min width of 48 pixels, then you want the label to be displayed inline block. That way it provides top align form fields. Now this will only happen when you minimize the form of the viewport to less than 480 pixels. So this is very, very important to keep in mind. So with this you can dynamically shrink or change things in your page in order to react to the different sizes that there is, so you can provide a better look and feel to the pages that are there. Here are some supported media properties. So you have the min and max width, you have device width, device height, orientation, aspect ratio, device aspect ratio, color index, monochrome, and resolution. Monochrome is very important specifically for e-readers nowadays that have some browsing capabilities. So some of these things you can take advantage on your devices. So let's take a look at how you can go along and how other people are doing it already in the live world in terms of moving from one way to the other. So let's see how switching on the fly works and how you can take advantage of this on your sites. So back in Internet Explorer 9, and what I want to show you is how the content manages itself to move around. So here we have the same demo that I showed you in the previous demo, and we're just gonna resize it here just to refresh a little bit so to see how the different goes, but we're gonna play along with a real world example. So here we have the Sasquatch website, which is a music show in the US, and what I'm going to show you is that this is a rich website and very nice and implemented web. And if we start resizing, we're going to see that it's going to recognize and it's going to make some changes. So here we go to a point where it thinks it's mobile, so it makes the change thanks to the CSS media queries, and we see that things changes. Here we have a very big menu, and then it removes a lot of the options and it just leaves up the ones that might be more important right from a mobile website or a mobile display. So here you can see it's very rich and smooth, the transition, and the execution in itself, it's well thought out. So here we have our emulator, and we're gonna just load the page. And as you see, it just goes straight to the mobile version, and it even takes advantage of many features available in this new browser, and things like HTML5 videos. So we see there the YouTube videos being displayed. The scrolling is very smooth. You see the graphics have been improved right to the mobile, and you see the experience is great. You're implementing the same content, the same website, but delivering in a way that is improved and that is better for the user. And here we have another example. This is our last example on CSS3, but probably the most complete of all of them. So here you see 3 columns here, and as we make it smaller, we'll see that will change. So here we go, it goes to 2 columns in a point, and goes to here on a vertical, and we can go from 3 columns right to 1 in a more mobile friendly way. So here we see how even the menu starts accommodating itself in a more natural way for mobile, and the content gets stretched in to provide all of the information in a mobile friendly way. Now this is an example website. So here we go right to the phone, and we see how it goes straight to that view. Again, the same content with just some tweaks in the CSS, so that it improves the readability and the accessibility right from the device. So before we finish, let's see how this happens. So let's see the code. So we're just gonna bring up the developer tools here, and I'm gonna show you how this works. So this is a sample site, so there are things that we talked from the previous presentation on how to improve your website that are not being, like putting the CSS3 here right in line in the page, but this is for the sake of Unity, having everything in the same place. So here we go to the end of the CSS style sheet, and we see how the media screen goes in there. So here we have a minimum width of 1200 pixels, and this is the full site. And then as we scroll down, we see how it changes to 760 pixels, so it makes the changes to 2 columns so that it can accommodate more content in a better way. And then we go to the mobile version, and the mobile version is with a max width of 550 pixels, and we see how it accommodates certain features in the page to be improved, even making changes to images so that the kind of code that, or the kind of assets that you download, are less and are minimal than the ones that you will do in a rather bigger page. So again, this is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and this is something that you can take advantage right in your sites right now, and that most modern browsers, both on the desktop and the mobile, are already capable of doing. So alright, so as you see, that's a very powerful capability, and I know a lot of you were like, wow, yeah, if you haven't seen it before. So with this, you just want to wrap up. This has been a very informative session. Certain things that I'm sure you haven't seen, and certain things that are lining up a smile in your face, because now you can take advantage of those things as a developer and start building experiences that target this new browser. So just to recap a bit, try to understand the mobile context where your sites will live, and this is very important. You want to know your customers, and you want to know how they're gonna make use of it on the go before you go building. So try to build also usable, engaging, and rich mobile sites. The less that you can do is to provide the user with a sad and boring experience. You want to do it in a way that it brings information to them right away, in a way that they expect, in a way that is useful for them in specific scenarios. And then just don't bring everything at once, because sometimes that becomes bore and fatigue, and ends up the user being confused in terms of how they can go with the content. Try to understand the new approach used around i9 Mobile. That means all of the different capabilities and features that you have available as a web developer or as a web designer. And make sure that your content shines under the right scenario and capabilities. The Internet Explorer 9 team has done the hard work, and the hard work means providing the platform for you to make your applications shine. We even have moved away from the experience. We're giving you all of the power to do that. So try to do it and try to take advantage of all this in the best way. And important, test. Nothing's gonna make up for testing. The team has done a terrific job of providing implementations that are very keen into making things happen, but try to do it in a way that you can just test, and test. So make sure that you keep that in mind. So with this, we're closing our webcast series. We hope that with this you're really close to something bigger, something that you're gonna make sure to take advantage of all these form factor abilities. And we're sure that you have learned a lot. There is so much information that we're giving you throughout these four series, but we're sure that you're gonna be able to take advantage of much of all of this in your own experience, improving the user's experience, improving the performance, and bringing your applications to mobile and to the desktop, and make it feel as native experiences as you can, because at the end that's what the user is expecting. So try Internet Explorer 9 on the Windows 7 Mango. You can download the beta version of the simulator and all of the tools so that you can keep on that. Also keep on learning. You can go to create.msdn.com and there will be a lot of assets there available for you to go along with creating content. And most importantly, try to stay updated. Here is the Windows Phone blog. There are many things that are happening right now as we approach the fall release. So you want to make sure that you stay on top of all the news and on top of all the new things that are coming out with this, so that you can make sure that you take advantage of all this. So everyone, my name is Gilbert. I hope that you have enjoyed everything that you have learned through all this series. I'm sure I did, putting all this content together and recording it, and I'm sure that we're gonna be seeing each other soon. So try to put all of this in practice and try to go along with all of the things that are new and that are available for you to go. So guys, it's been my pleasure to have accompanied you through all this, and I'm looking forward to all of your new experiences putting all of this into practice. See you guys soon. Bye.